guys, I'm Sarah and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my long overdue writing Q&A that I asked questions for probably a couple months ago. It kind of just slipped my mind that I had it. I also was extremely busy, or just life is nuts. So I apologize if I don't look very put together or whatever, because my life is nuts and I have no time for anything. So, yeah, so I thought I'd do this writing Q&A today because it just sort of popped into my head to do it today, like right now. So literally I got the camera out and I'm doing this now. So, I got a few questions, both from both from the comments on my YouTube post when I asked for questions about this. Also, I got a question from one of my Goodreads followers, so thank you very much to everybody who gave me questions to answer. And feel free also, when this video is done or throughout the video or whatever, however you do comments, if you have further questions that I don't answer in these that you would like to ask me about my writing, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I'll probably either answer them there, or if I get enough of them, I might do a part 2, but I will probably still just answer them in the comments anyways. So, without further ado, I'm just going to jump right into them. Some of these probably, yeah, I don't have too many of them, so hopefully this won't be too long of a video, but you know what? We're just going to go with it. Okay. The first one is the only one I got from Goodreads, and that was from my friend Marquis. I think I said her name right. If you watch this, Marquis, I apologize if I just said your name wrong twice. So yeah, I stumble over names constantly. So, her question was, what is your favorite point of view style to write in? I'm assuming that means like present tense, past tense or something. Or like, yeah, or first person, third person, anything like that. For point of view style, I'm just gonna answer both of them. I generally write in like past tense. I've never gotten into the present tense type things. So yeah, I generally just lean towards past tense, and I generally lean towards third person. I've written a handful of short stories and one novella in first person, but generally I just gravitate towards third person. I prefer it that way. I can read any, but I prefer to write in third person, so I don't know. That's just where my natural inclination goes to, so that's what I do. Okay, so the questions from YouTube, I have 3 from Lindsay from BFCG. Her first one is, what's one genre you would never write? The first one that comes off the top of my head is historical. Funny thing, my very first book of what is now my Creechily Chronicles trilogy, which is Christian young adult fantasy, that one was going to start as a historical. I wrote like 3 pages, realized I was not cut out for historical, and changed it to a fantasy. So, yeah, there's too much. Historical's tricky because there's so much research involved with it, and you can mess things up easily. You can easily anger people if you get something wrong or you decide to take fictional license for things. Even historical fantasy, I don't think I'd ever do, because there's too much research involved in there. I would freak myself out with the research, frankly. So I think I would just, like, I might have historical details in a fantasy that, like, something that was in historical times. Like, for example, Creechily Chronicles is a, like, medieval style fantasy. So I try to stick in the way that, certain words that they might use, things like that. Like, I don't put, like, okay and yeah when my characters talk in my story, because that's too modern. I'm trying to keep it more a modern style of writing, but without modern terminology, if that makes sense. So if I, like, end up using a modern phrase, in a story, in one of those stories, I will then, in edits, change it to a more creative type thing that would fit in their world. So yeah, I might put historical context in certain things, like in Creechily Chronicles, I very rarely use girls to describe the young women. They're maidens, or they're just young women, depending on how I write it, or how it works. Girls I only use in very rare occasions, usually for children, or and an occasional dialogue phrase if it sounds better if the character says it that way. So, yeah, things like that, but historical is definitely one genre I am too scared to write in. So yeah, that would definitely be my first one, and obviously I'm like erotica romance. Just no. Okay. Her second question is there a genre you can see yourself writing one day that isn't fantasy? So I'm going to work around this because you just said purely fantasy. So that kind of negates, if you'd said speculative fiction, I would really have to think outside the box. But yes, outside of fantasy, yes, I have several ideas that are not in that realm. They're more like in the, say, sci-fi realm. Like I have an idea for a sci-fi. I do have an idea for like a superhero series. There's another one that's like dystopian crossed with spiritual warfare. I have lots of different ideas. Fairy tale retellings, though technically that's in more the fantasy genre, so, but yes, I have lots of different ideas. I have one that's a contemporary, but it's a really old idea from when I was a kid. I don't actually know if I'm going to do anything with that one, though. Like, write a book and publish it with that one, I don't actually know. That's just kind of just an idea that's been there forever. I don't know if I'm going to do anything with it, though. Her third question is, do you name your main characters first before writing the main of the book, or do you pick their names as the book grows? Okay, I think you're asking, do I name my main characters and my other characters before I write the book, or as I go through it? I think that's what you mean. So if not, you can correct me in the comments, Lindsay. So yes. Generally I name characters, their names come to me before I've written the books. I have had occasional characters where I had to name them in the middle of the book. There was one side character specifically I remember in the first Creaturely Chronicles book. I had to come up with her name as I wrote the book, but I pretty much just came up with it on the spot. Like, I needed a name. I think I asked my mom and my grandma if they had suggestions, and then I came up with a different one and then, yeah, that was her name at the time, but I didn't pre-plan her name. Most characters, if they come onto the scene, since I'm a pantster, I don't necessarily have all my side characters fleshed out, but they generally come with their names. My main characters for Creaturely Chronicles, Vienna and Flynn, they had their names ahead of time. I just knew what their names were initially. Some people are a little more difficult. I more have problems with surnames, like last names for people. I'm terrible at that. So, yeah. But generally speaking, for most of my stories, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. Yeah, most of them, the characters come with their first names. Not necessarily their last names. Most of them don't have last names, which becomes really tricky if I need one, because then it's like, I have no idea. Like, my one main character, Flynn, he didn't even have a last name in the very first book, which was fine. But then he kind of needed one for the second book to reveal a certain thing, and yeah, I literally had to come up with a last name for him in the second book, but he didn't come with one. So there is that. So yeah, first names are easier for me, last names not so much. That's kind of like place names and stuff like that. I'm terrible at place names. Naming people and animals and stuff is generally easy. Naming places, countries, towns, landmarks, things like that, no, I usually come up with the weirdest things and usually have to change it later. Yeah. Like, there's a light tree that I have currently. It is like the cheesiest name ever, but I don't have another one. So, yes. Okay, and then I got also some questions from Reese from the Writing Songbird. Her first one is, what is your favorite writing drink? Like tea or coffee? I actually don't drink anything when I'm writing. For one, I find it very distracting to like eat or drink while I'm writing. Generally, I just have to write, get in the zone, stay in the zone, and that's it. That I can't do anything else along the side. Also, I have a very old computer, and I try not to put any liquids near it, just in case it might, like, the liquids might decide to just spontaneously tip over and cut its life short. So, yeah, I generally keep all liquids far away from it as possible, because with the luck I have, the liquids would, like I said, spontaneously kill it. So, I generally try to keep liquids far away from it. So, I also This might kill a few people's souls, but I don't like coffee. I don't like the smell of it. I've never tasted it, and because I don't like the smell of it, and I don't have any intention to. Very sorry. I'm a tea person. I like tea. So probably if I did have a writing drink, it'd be either tea or just water. So yeah, but I don't really have one because of I need to focus and old computer problems. Okay, her second question is, do you have a writing playlist? I don't have a specific playlist for just writing in general. She's talking music playlist, if in case that was confusing. At least I think so. If you're not, Reese, feel free to correct me. But yeah, I don't really have one for writing in general, like a writing playlist like I've seen on YouTube and stuff. I don't really have that. I will have certain songs in mind that I might stick on a playlist if they help with my focusing or something. And I do have playlists for each of my books. That is one thing I will, when I publish them, I was going to be including at the very end of them, like as a bonus thing or something, is the playlist for each book, because I really like it when music fits with a story. I like it when other authors share their playlists for their books and stuff like that. So yeah. I do have specific ones for the specific books I have. Some of them are more haphazard, like the one for book 3 for my Creaturely Chronicles is a mess because the book is a mess. So yeah, but once I know like what the story beats are, a lot of the songs will like end up either staying or leaving depending on that. So yeah, I do have things like that, but specifically when I'm writing, I have to be either in the mood for music. Sometimes music distracts me if I'm trying to write, so I can't do it then. Sometimes it helps me get in the zone. Depends on my headspace at the time, so that's how that works. Okay, her third question is, what's your motivation for writing? I'm assuming you mean like my motivation. I'm assuming you mean like the reason I write? Sort of things, something like that. This might be one of those long answers. I have always liked telling stories, been play acting since I was a kid and stuff like that with like my toys and things like that. I always preferred my own imagination to anybody else's, like say in books and stuff. That's why I started reading really late in life, because I didn't want to just sit there and read somebody else's story. I wanted to create my own and just live in my own head, basically. And so I've always had that inclination towards storytelling, but I never really thought of writing books, selling them, being an author as like a living until, I forget exactly what year it was. But yeah, it was a long while ago, that it was when I first watched Tangled, Disney's Tangled. I think I've told this story before. If not, you guys can hear it for the first time. If I have, you can just hear it again. But anyways, I watched that movie and it inspired me because I was in a situation where what I previously thought I wanted to do ended up being like not what I wanted to do as like a living or career or type thing like that. And I was pretty depressed about that. And I was like, I didn't know what to do and stuff like that. So I basically was like asking God, what am I supposed to do now? Because this is the one thing that I thought was going to be what I was going to do. I'm not going to do it anymore because I have realized it is not for me. And so I was kind of like, what do I do now? And then my family and I watched Tangled for the very first time. And yeah, something about that story, the way the characters were, the story, everything, it sucked me right in. I loved the story from the beginning to the end. I just wanted to be there. I didn't want it to end. And my very first thought after the movie ended was, I want to write stories like that. And it was just a random thought that just popped into my head, and I had never thought of being an author. Like, I always liked creating stories and stuff for, like, school and things like that, but I never really thought of it as anything beyond that. So, yeah, that was and I felt like basically the Holy Spirit telling me, this is it. This is what I've called you to do. And so, yeah, my inspiration is just basically because I never would have thought of this on my own. That's why I knew it wasn't me saying it, because, I mean, it was me, but it was also, like, God prompting me, because it was me, but it was also like totally not something I would think of. And that became basically just a driving force to do it. And also I just wanted to, my motivation is I want to write good stories. I want to write stories that inspire people, give them an adventure, give them an escape, but also encourage them. It's kind of a strange thing because I don't really know exactly my main focal point for it. I just know I wanted to inspire people. I wanted people to fall in love with these characters that I created, these worlds I come with, and to just be better people because of it, to come to terms with themselves and things like that. There's really no one set thing. I just know I just want to inspire people. And that was my set thing. It's very broad, I know, but that's kind of just my motivation for it. I also just want to write good stories, especially in seeing recent years, the last few especially, how storytelling in both books and movies and TV series and stuff like that, how it's gone downhill. How people, even beyond how people don't even seem to realize how to structure a story anymore. They don't know, it seems like they don't even know how to tell a story. They don't know how to give you characters that you want to follow and you want to hang out with and you want to be inspired by. Like, I just don't get it. It's like they're trying to destroy themselves and destroy other people through these stories, and I'm just like, what is the point? There's no point to this anymore. And that's why a lot of when I go back to looking at older ones, whether it's older books, older movies, things like that, mainly with movies, with the older things, but yeah, it's just, they had a different set of morals back then. They had a different, even back then, I'm talking even just 10 years ago or 5 years ago. It's ridiculous how so much of it has changed. And most of these stories that they come out with nowadays, I would not call inspiring. I would call depressing, or just plain confusing, or not even anything. They're not coming out with stories that are like Tangled now. They're coming out with stories that I don't even know what they are. And yeah, so I just want to give people good reading too, because that is so rare now. You can't have good reading, or if you do, it's filled with a bunch of politically correct political stuff that they just cram in there and they want to shove in your face, and you're just like, I don't care. I just want a good story, and this isn't it. So yeah, I definitely want to inspire people. I want my stories to be like the comfort and adventure and things that I wanted to do, like when I read books as a kid. There's a whole bunch of things that encompass in that, but mainly if you asked me just one phrase to say it would be to inspire people. And that's literally it. Even if it's just, I have to keep telling myself this because it is very nerve-wracking, the idea of publishing a book. And I have to tell myself that even if only one person reads my book, and that's it, nobody else in the world reads it, but if one person reads that book and their life has changed, then my book accomplished its goal. I'm going to get really emotional, and I shouldn't. Okay, so we're just going to stop talking about that now. But yes, I have to keep reminding myself of that because it's very easy to lose yourself in the whole, publishing is extremely intimidating, and there's so much competition out there. Yeah, and I don't have a big platform. I have this channel and my Goodreads, and that's it. I don't have the tons of social media that a lot of other people do, which doesn't seem to be working anymore anyways, from what I've heard. But that is beside the point. So I have a very small sphere of influence. So, like, my book would probably be lost out there. But I have to keep reminding myself that if it's just that one person, then that's okay. My book and my mission were accomplished. So, yeah, that is pretty much a very rambly kind of explanation for my motivation for writing. Okay, and Reese's last question is, if you could give new writers one piece of advice, what would it be? Okay, another long question, or another long answer to a question. I'm not sure if I'm qualified, so to speak, to give writing advice. I'm am still pretty new at it myself. I mean, I've been doing it a long time, but I think we're always new to it in retrospect. But yes, if I could give writers one piece of advice, it would be a very probably controversial thing. It would be to write what you like, not what you know. Because the old writing advice is write what you know. But honestly, I think that is extremely stupid advice, because if I wrote only what I knew, I would have a very small thing that I could only write in. But if you write what you like, you will actually, if you write what you're passionate about, if you write the stories that you like to read, you like to watch, you like to see, you will naturally gravitate towards those stories, whether you've experienced those life things or not. And that will go through in your writing, because you will become knowledgeable about it, something you like, because you will do research. Like for me, one thing I have never done is sword fight. I have never done any type of weapons training. I have never done anything like that. But I love action in my movies and in my books. I definitely like swordplay, things with daggers, things like that. Like, I don't have an extensive knowledge of, like, say, firearms and stuff like that. I don't really have anything like that, because I'm not that interested in that. I'm interested in, like, swords and bows and arrows and stuff like that. I've never shot a bow and arrow in my life. I've never wielded a sword. I've never done anything. The closest I've done, I've practiced some knife throwing. That's about it. So I have no knowledge. I mean, I have no experience with it. So basically what I know is pretty much nothing. But I was very interested in it, so I researched it. I found books. I found several YouTube channels that talked about it. Actually, pretty much just one. But yeah. And if you're interested in the same thing, I will link them down below, the Shadowversity channel, because they do a really great job. One of their videos about flaming blades for, like, swords, lighting them on fire and stuff, that actually really helped me in my second book. So I'll link their channel down below so you can check them out in case you're interested in the same thing. But so I researched it, and so then I researched it, and I researched, like, fighting techniques and how to write them so that they're more decent, and how to write them, and, like, what is the best way to do it. So I became knowledgeable about something because I liked it to begin with. So I became knowledgeable about it so I could write it better. So that's why I think the write what you know is a very misleading advice, because what you might know is very limited. But what you like, that you will then research and then have knowledge about and can write, that is better. So yeah, another exercise I would suggest doing, because I haven't completed this myself. I started it, but I never completed it, because due to my crazy life that I was talking about, is to pick up books that are your favorite, like just random books off your shelf. All your books on your shelf if you want to. That's what I was aiming for at first, but I never completed it. So maybe one day I will. And look at the book, just look at the cover, and the first things that pop to your mind, right, that you like about this book, write it down. It can be the characters, the plot, the setting, the way the author wrote it. And so the first things that come to mind when you look at a book, write down your likes and your dislikes. Your dislikes may be very few. They may be very little. There might be a couple things that stand out. There might be nothing. And then, because then after a while I started doing this with just, I think it was just this shelf. The books on this shelf at the time. I think I've reorganized it a bit since then. But anyways, and I noticed very quickly a pattern of the books that I liked, what was in them, what was consistent in each book that I liked, like 5-star books, 4-star books. There was a consistent pattern of things I liked specifically in those books that I also wrote really well. Or I would tend to lean towards wanting to write better, so then those scenes would get better. And then the books where I had more gripes, I realized those were things either I did not write well, and I should not write very, like, long, detailed things, or they were things that I just personally didn't like and would never write. So, and then I made started a list of my likes and my dislikes, because what you read is what you will write. So if you like, say you like romance, say you like that in your books, you will put that in your own books when you write. So it is better to say you want to do like healthy relationships. Well, then read books with healthy relationships. Learn how to pick out unhealthy relationships in books, so then you don't write them. Things like that. So use the reading material that you have to study, because that's how I learned writing as well. I learned the techniques from books and like the Go Teen Writers website and stuff like that. I learned the technique, but I also learned how to do it by reading a lot. I learned by studying the books I liked, the books I read, picking out, like, just thinking to myself, what do I not like about this? What do I like about this? Same with movies. My family and I are very good about picking apart movies because we watch the same ones on repeat a lot, so then we tend to notice the problems, but I have started doing it a lot more too. Movie analysis videos have really helped me with this too. Not all of them are without language though, so I don't necessarily recommend them. It depends. But yeah, I do like to, you pick apart movies and TV shows. Doesn't mean you don't like them anymore. Just means you notice their flaws. And then what are the flaws you can live with, and what are the flaws that irritate you to no end? I found that out too. And just like, yeah, you basically educate yourself how to do it. And maybe that just comes naturally to me because I was homeschooled. So I didn't grow up with the like public education way of doing things. I pretty much, if I wanted to learn something, either my mom taught me in school about it or I taught myself. I learned how to do it. And yeah, so the book thing, I would definitely recommend doing that. You could probably do it with movies too. Pick out like 1 or 2 favorite movies and determine what do you like about this movie, what do you not like. Things like that, because sometimes the movies are a little easier to point out what you do and do not like, especially plot-wise. At least for me, I've noticed that. Sometimes plot points in books I tend to get a little more sticky on, probably because they can range in length, so sometimes I miss like certain plot points and stuff like that, but in movies and stuff, it's a little easier because they're shorter, and they're a little, I don't know, for me, I guess maybe it's the more visual aspect, I have no idea. Or maybe it's just because I tend to watch them more than read my books over and over again more because they're shorter. So, but yeah, those would definitely be my big writing advice for people, which may be controversial, but that's me. In a nutshell, I'm controversial. So yeah, that's it. Those are all the questions I got. Like I said at the beginning of this video, if you have further questions about my writing and so on, please leave them down below in the comments. If I get enough of them, I may do a part 2 to this. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoyed my more deeper topics of rambling and stuff like that. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Bye!